Turns out the worst betrayal of your life comes wrapped in a flash drive with a yellow post-it that just says, "I'm sorry." My neighbor handed it to me like he was delivering test results for something terminal, which honestly wasn't far off. I thought my biggest crisis was the HOA threatening to fine me $200 because my front door was Desert Sunset instead of approved Sahara Beige. Turns out when your husband's been running a side operation that would make the CIA jealous, paint colors become adorably irrelevant. My name is Cleo Harrington, 34, data analyst for a tech startup in Austin that pays me 6 figures to find patterns in chaos. The irony of missing the biggest pattern in my own life isn't lost on me. I've been married to Pierce for 8 years, the kind of marriage that looks perfect in Christmas cards and feels like watching paint dry in real life. We live in Meadowbrook Estates, one of those planned communities where every house has the same mailbox and everyone pretends to care about sustainable landscaping while secretly hating their neighbors' kids. Pierce manages sales at Thompson's Auto Hub, which he insists on calling an automotive enterprise, like he's running Ford instead of hawking used Hondas to people with credit scores in the 500s. He's got that effortless charm that sells cars and apparently sells lies just as effectively. 36 years old, still does push-ups every morning, drinks protein shakes, wears cologne that costs more than our water bill. We don't have kids. Not by choice. Well, not entirely. We've had the maybe next year conversation for the past 5 years, always concluding that we're not quite ready, not quite stable enough, not quite something. I stopped pushing after year 6 when I realized Pierce's enthusiasm for fatherhood ranked somewhere between jury duty and dental surgery. Our neighbor Hugh Brennan became my accidental guardian angel, which is hilarious because up until that Tuesday in late August, I thought he was just the paranoid retiree who installed more security cameras than a casino. 63, retired Navy communications officer, divorced twice, lives alone with a tabby cat named Radar and an impressive collection of surveillance equipment pointed at the street. The neighborhood thinks he's eccentric. Turns out he's just thorough. Hugh caught me getting mail on that particular Tuesday afternoon. I was in my standard work-from-home uniform, leggings, oversized sweater, hair in a bun that hadn't seen a brush since Monday. He walked across his perfectly edged lawn holding a flash drive like it contained nuclear codes. "Cleo," he said, voice tight, "I need to show you something. It's about Pierce." The way he said it made my stomach drop. Not the gossipy, "your husband was rude at the HOA meeting" tone. More like, "I found something in your biopsy" energy. "I've been documenting some activity," Hugh continued, not quite meeting my eyes. "I installed the cameras after those car break-ins early this spring. They record the whole street. I wasn't looking for this, but once I saw it, I couldn't not tell you." He pressed the flash drive into my hand, squeezed my shoulder once, and walked back to his house without another word. Very Hugh. All action, zero small talk. I stood there holding that tiny piece of plastic like it was a grenade. Part of me wanted to throw it in the garbage disposal and pretend this conversation never happened. The other part, the analyst part that's paid to find truth in data, couldn't ignore it. I waited until Wednesday morning. Pierce left at 7:30 like always. Coffee tumbler in hand, quick kiss on my forehead. "Love you, babe. See you tonight." The routine was so practiced it felt choreographed. I watched his BMW pull out of the driveway, waited 5 minutes to be sure he wasn't coming back for forgotten keys or his phone, then plugged the drive into my laptop with shaking hands. The folder was labeled Documentation in Hugh's precise military formatting. Inside were 47 video files organized by date, spanning 6 months. I clicked the first one dated March 15th. The footage was crystal clear, timestamp in the corner, Hugh's camera angle capturing the entire street. At 2:14 in the afternoon on a Thursday, when Pierce had told me he was doing inventory at the dealership, his BMW pulled up, but he wasn't alone. The passenger door opened and out stepped Simone Keller. Simone from our neighborhood book club. Simone who always complimented my blouse choices and brought homemade lemon bars to meetings. Simone who was married to Calvin, the civil engineer who coached Little League despite not having kids of his own. Simone who lived 4 streets over in the same cookie-cutter development, in the same HOA-approved house, living the same suburban dream we all pretended to love. They stood in our driveway talking for 3 minutes. I know because I watched the timestamp like it would somehow change the reality. Then Pierce unlocked our front door, and they both went inside. My house. While I was at the office downtown pulling overtime on quarterly reports. They emerged 2 hours and 47 minutes later. Pierce checked the street both ways before walking her to her car parked 2 blocks down. Professional. Practiced. This wasn't their first time. I clicked the next video, then the next. The pattern emerged like the datasets I analyze for work. Undeniable and devastating. Motel 6 off Highway 290. Pierce's car arriving at noon. Simone's Honda pulling in 3 minutes later. The Airbnb complex downtown where Pierce claimed his boss was hosting client dinners. Target parking lot on Sunday mornings when he said he was checking inventory, but was actually having coffee dates in broad daylight. Hugh hadn't just caught them once. He'd documented an entire affair with the dedication of a detective building a case. Dates, times, locations, license plates. He'd even photographed receipts from our trash when Pierce threw away motel charges and restaurant bills. The man had assembled a prosecutor's dream. My analyst brain kicked in automatically, finding patterns, calculating costs. Hotel charges twice a week averaging $120. Restaurant receipts from places we'd never been together. Cash withdrawals from ATMs near her neighborhood. I pulled up our credit card statements going back 6 months and cross-referenced them with Hugh's timeline. Pierce had spent approximately $11,000 on this affair. Our joint account money. The work expenses he claimed were client dinners. The dealership emergencies that required cash. All of it feeding a relationship I'd been completely blind to while sitting 3 feet away from him every night watching Netflix and discussing whether we should finally replace the dishwasher. Then I opened the last video file, dated several weeks ago. Pierce and Simone at a Starbucks on the east side. The camera angle was different. Hugh must have followed them. They sat at an outdoor table for 37 minutes. At the 20-minute mark, Simone pulled something from her purse and slid it across the table. Even from Hugh's distance, I could make out what it was. An ultrasound photo. Pierce stared at it for a long time, then reached across and put his hand over hers. Not the gesture of a man having a casual affair. The gesture of a man looking at his future. My husband had gotten my book club friend pregnant while I was spending 5 years in maybe next year purgatory. I sat there for 2 hours watching every file twice, taking screenshots, organizing data, building my own documentation. Because here's what I learned in 8 years of marriage and 10 years of data analysis. Information is only powerful if you know how to use it. And I had a Labor Day barbecue to plan. The thing about discovering your husband's entire secret life is that you can't exactly call in sick to your marriage. Sorry, honey, can't do dinner tonight. Just found out you're a lying cheater. Doesn't quite roll off the tongue. So I did what any self-respecting data analyst would do. I went undercover in my own life. Wednesday night, Pierce came home at 6:15 with Thai takeout from our usual spot. Pad Thai for me, drunken noodles for him, spring rolls to share. He kissed my cheek, asked about my day, complained about a difficult customer who tried to haggle on a 2019 Camry. I smiled, nodded, asked follow-up questions like I actually cared whether the extended warranty sold or not. "You okay?" he asked halfway through dinner, noticing something in my face I hadn't managed to smooth over completely. "Just tired," I said, which wasn't even a lie. Watching your life implode in high-definition surveillance footage really takes it out of you. Big project at work. He bought it. Why wouldn't he? I'd been buying his inventory excuses for 6 months. That night in bed, he reached for me with the same comfortable familiarity we'd developed over 8 years. I let him, watching the ceiling fan spin in the dark, wondering how many times he'd touched me after touching her, wondering if he compared us. Wondering if this was what losing your mind felt like, or if I'd already lost it, and this was just the paperwork stage. Thursday morning, I started phase 1, acting like the perfect wife while secretly becoming his personal FBI agent. I smiled over coffee, packed his lunch with a note that said, "Have a great day," like I was auditioning for a 50s housewife revival. Kissed him goodbye at the door while mentally cataloging every lie he'd told me in the past 6 months. The performance would have won me an Oscar if Betrayed Spouses had their own awards category. I waited exactly 12 minutes after he left, then opened my laptop and did what I do best. I analyzed data. Pierce used our joint credit card for everything because he claimed it was easier for taxes. What he meant was it was easier to hide line items in plain sight when you're married to someone who trusted you completely. March 19th. Motel 6, Highway 290. $137. I'd been in Dallas that day for a work conference. Pierce said he worked late doing end-of-month reports. April 3rd, Bartlett's Steakhouse downtown. $214. Our anniversary dinner budget was $150, but apparently Simone rated the premium menu. May 27th, Nordstrom, $289. I never got anything from Nordstrom. Pierce said department stores were overpriced. Guess that only applied when shopping for your wife. The receipts painted a picture clearer than Hugh's surveillance footage. Pierce wasn't just cheating, he was romancing her with our money while I got Target clearance rack and maybe next year promises about vacation. Friday was book club night. We met at Vera's house every other week to discuss whatever literary fiction made us feel intellectual while drinking wine. That definitely wasn't. This month was some depressing novel about a woman whose husband left her for someone younger. The irony was so thick you could choke on it. Simone showed up 20 minutes late in a flowy blouse that suddenly made sense. She wasn't gaining weight from Vera's famous cheese board. She was hiding a pregnancy from a room full of women who'd probably throw a baby shower in 6 months, without knowing they were celebrating my marriage's funeral. "Sorry I'm late," Simone said, settling into the couch next to me. Next to me. Like we were friends. Like she hadn't been sleeping with my husband in my house while I was working to pay for the mortgage that covered the bed they used. Traffic on Lamar was insane. "No worries," I said, pouring her wine before remembering pregnant women don't drink. My hand froze mid-pour. "Oh, I'm doing a cleanse," she said quickly, way too quickly. "Just water for me. A cleanse. That's what we're calling it now." "You look great," I said, and I meant it in the most poisonous way possible. Glowing, even. She actually blushed. "Thanks, Cleo, you're always so sweet." Sweet, that's me. Sweet little Cleo who brings homemade brownies to neighborhood parties and never complains when her husband works late. Sweet, stupid Cleo who didn't notice her book club buddy was auditioning for the role of second wife. We discussed the book for 90 minutes. The main character's husband was a narcissist who gaslit her about his affair for 2 years before she finally found evidence. Everyone agreed she should have left sooner, should have seen the signs, should have trusted her instincts. "I mean, how do you not know your husband is cheating?" Tessa asked, sipping her third glass of Pinot Grigio. "There's always signs." "Some people are just really good at lying," Simone said, looking right at me with those big, sympathetic eyes. "And some people trust too much." I smiled back. "You're so right. Trust is everything in a marriage." The audacity of this woman could have powered the entire electrical grid. Sunday morning, Pierce announced he needed to run to the dealership for a few hours. Inventory. Again. Always inventory. Like used cars spontaneously reproduce overnight and require constant counting. "Want me to come with?" I asked innocently. I could help. The panic in his eyes lasted exactly half a second before he recovered. "Nah, it's boring paperwork stuff. You relax. Maybe meal prep for the week?" Translation. "I need you to stay home so I can meet my pregnant girlfriend without you accidentally discovering I'm human garbage." "Sounds good," I said. "I'll make that chicken thing you like." He kissed my forehead. His signature move, affectionate but not intimate, the kind of kiss you give a roommate you're fond of, and left. I gave him a 15-minute head start, then checked the Find My iPhone app we'd set up years ago for safety. His phone was pinging from Target, not the dealership. Target. The same Target parking lot where Hugh had documented them meeting 4 different times. I could have driven there, could have confronted them in the parking lot like some reality TV show ambush. But that's not how you win. That's how you become the crazy ex-wife in their love story, the obstacle they overcame together, the villain in their narrative. I wanted to be the author, not a character. So instead, I opened my laptop and started a new project folder. Labor Day BBQ planning. Pierce and I hosted the annual neighborhood cookout every year. His idea originally, something about community building and networking opportunities. Translation: showing off our perfect marriage and perfect house and perfect suburban life. This year's barbecue was going to be very different. I pulled up our neighborhood email list. 47 families in Meadowbrook Estates. 47 households who loved nothing more than drama they could discuss at the community pool. I drafted the invitation. Annual Labor Day cookout at the Harringtons. Burgers, drinks, and a special presentation you won't want to miss. The special presentation was going to be Hugh's surveillance footage in stunning high definition, projected on our fence for optimal viewing. Monday, I took a personal day from work, first one in 2 years, and drove to Thompson's Auto Hub. Pierce's boss, Gerald Thompson, was exactly the kind of old-school car dealer you'd expect. 60-something, oversized personality, American flag in the office, photos of himself with local politicians covering every wall. "Mrs. Harrington," he boomed when his assistant showed me in. "What brings you by?" "Pierce isn't here. He's out on a test drive." "Actually, Mr. Thompson, I came to talk to you." I pulled out my tablet, already loaded with spreadsheets I'd built over the weekend. "I've been reviewing some financial discrepancies I thought you should be aware of." His smile faded. "What kind of discrepancies?" "The kind where commission payments don't match sales records. The kind where corporate card charges happen at hotels during business hours. The kind where someone's been skimming about $1,800 a month for the past 6 months." I showed him everything. Pierce's sales records versus his reported commissions. Corporate card statements with charges at Motel 6, restaurants, retail stores, none matching any client meetings or business purposes. Cash advances that violated company policy. I'd cross-referenced, calculated, and documented every fraudulent transaction totaling $11,000. Gerald's face went from tan to crimson. "I'll need to verify this." "Of course," I said pleasantly. "I've sent copies to your business email. I'm a data analyst, Mr. Thompson. This is what I do. The numbers don't lie." Unlike Pierce. Pierce lies beautifully. I left the dealership knowing I'd just lit the fuse on a bomb that would detonate Pierce's career. Financial fraud, misuse of company resources, falsified commission reports. Gerald Thompson didn't build a successful dealership by tolerating thieves, even charming ones. By the time I got home, Pierce's car was in the driveway. He was sitting at the kitchen table, phone in hand, looking confused. "Hey, babe," he said. "Weirdest thing, Gerald called me in for a meeting tomorrow morning. Something about an audit. Did he mention anything when you stopped by?" I blinked. "Stopped by where?" "The dealership. Janet said you came by today." "Oh, right," I said, smooth as glass. "I dropped off those cookies I made for the office. Didn't want to bother you while you were with a client." He relaxed. "That's sweet. Thanks." Sweet. There's that word again. I started unpacking groceries, my back to him so he couldn't see my face. Labor Day cookout invitations went out today. Everyone's excited. It's going to be our best one yet. "Cool," he said, already scrolling through his phone. Probably texting Simone about the audit, wondering if they'd been caught, calculating his next lie. He had no idea the audit was the least of his problems. He had no idea I'd invited everyone who mattered. And he definitely had no idea I'd already set up the projector. Pierce got fired on Tuesday morning. I know because he came home at 10:47, 3 hours earlier than any legitimate workday should end, looking like someone had run over his dog and then backed up to make sure. "They let me go," he said, standing in the kitchen doorway, still holding his desk belongings in a cardboard box. A dying cactus, some sales awards, a framed photo of us from our wedding that suddenly felt like archaeological evidence of who we used to be. I looked up from my laptop, arranged my face into concerned wife mode. "What? Why?" "Some accounting discrepancy. Gerald said there were irregularities in my commission reports and corporate card usage. He's involving the company attorney. Cleo, I swear I didn't do anything wrong. This is crazy." The performance was almost convincing. Hurt confusion, righteous indignation, the perfect blend of wounded and bewildered. He'd probably practiced this exact tone with customers who questioned the Carfax reports. "That's insane," I said, walking over to hug him like a supportive spouse instead of the person who'd gift-wrapped his termination and hand-delivered it to his boss. Did they show you what they found? Gerald had printouts, pages of charges, dates, locations. But half that stuff I can explain. Client meetings, work events. He wouldn't even listen. Client meetings at Motel 6, work events at restaurants. Pierce took Simone to while I ate reheated leftovers at home. The lies came so naturally to him, I almost admired the craftsmanship. "We'll figure this out," I said into his shoulder. "Maybe you need a lawyer?" "With what money?" His voice cracked genuine panic now. "Our savings won't cover more than 2 months of mortgage if I don't find something fast." Our savings. The savings I'd been building for 8 years while he siphoned thousands into his affair. The savings that were about to become my savings once divorce papers made everything crystal clear about community property division in Texas. "Let's not panic yet," I said, pulling back to look at him with concern I absolutely did not feel. "The barbecue's this weekend. We should still host it. Show everyone we're fine. You never know. Maybe someone knows about job openings." He looked at me like I'd just handed him a life raft. "You still want to do the barbecue?" "Of course. We committed to it. Besides, canceling now would just make people gossip." I smiled. "And you know how this neighborhood loves to gossip." If he'd been paying attention to anything other than his own catastrophe, he might have heard the knife sharpening behind those words. Wednesday afternoon while Pierce was upstairs updating his resume, probably texting Simone about their imploding situation, I got a call from an unknown number. "Is this Cleo Harrington?" Woman's voice, unfamiliar, tense. "Yes?" "This is Paige Morrison. I'm Calvin Keller's sister. We need to talk about your husband and my brother's wife." My heart rate spiked. This wasn't part of the plan. Calvin wasn't supposed to know anything until the barbecue reveal. "I'm sorry, what?" "Don't play dumb. Calvin found hotel receipts in Simone's car last week. She broke down and told him everything yesterday. The affair, the pregnancy, all of it. He's filing for divorce. I'm calling because you deserve to know what you're married to." The room tilted slightly. Simone had confessed. My entire carefully constructed revenge plan just developed a massive crack. "How long have you known?" Paige asked, her voice sharp with accusation, like I was somehow complicit in my own betrayal. 2 weeks, I said quietly. "I found out 2 weeks ago." "And you're just sitting on it? While she's pregnant with your husband's baby and my brother is falling apart?" "The baby." "Right. The reason this whole situation transcended regular infidelity and crossed into life-altering territory. Pierce hadn't just cheated. He'd created an entire alternate future with someone else while I was stuck in maybe next year limbo. "I'm handling it," I said, which was both true and completely inadequate. "By throwing a barbecue?" Paige's voice dripped contempt. "Calvin told me about your neighborhood cookout invitation. You're really going to stand there serving potato salad like everything's fine? Something like that?" I wasn't about to explain my plan to a stranger, even one with legitimate grievance. "Unbelievable. My brother is devastated and you're worried about social appearances. You deserve each other." She hung up. I sat there holding the phone, recalculating everything. Calvin knew, which meant Simone definitely wasn't coming to the barbecue, which meant my big reveal would land with significantly less impact if the other guilty party wasn't present to experience public humiliation. Unless... I opened my laptop and pulled up Simone's Facebook profile. Public, because of course it was. She'd posted 2 hours ago. "Sometimes life takes unexpected turns. Trust the journey. Embracing new chapters with courage and grace." The comments were full of supportive responses from people who had no idea what new chapter actually meant. Her mother wrote, "So proud of you, sweetie." Her college roommate posted prayer hands. The delusion was breathtaking. I scrolled through her friends list until I found her sister, Marnie Fletcher. Clicked through to Marnie's profile. Recent posts showed someone deeply invested in her sister's life, constantly tagging Simone, sharing memories, posting about sister bond goals. I drafted a message carefully. "Hi Marnie, this is awkward, but I'm friends with Simone from book club, and I'm really worried about her. She seemed upset at our last meeting and mentioned some family stress. I wanted to reach out to make sure she's okay, but I don't want to overstep. Is there anything going on I should know about so I can be a better friend? Concerned. Caring. Completely calculated. Marnie responded within 20 minutes. That's so sweet of you to worry. Simone's going through a divorce right now. Calvin found out she's pregnant and it's not his. It's been really rough. She's staying with me in Round Rock for a few weeks until things calm down. Not Calvin's baby, which meant Pierce was definitely the father, which meant DNA tests and child support and 18 years of financial obligation. The mathematics of Pierce's future were adding up to exactly the disaster he deserved. I replied, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea. Please tell her we're all thinking of her. Our neighborhood barbecue is this Saturday. I'd love for her to come if she needs distraction and support from friends. Sometimes being around people who care helps." The bait was set. Would Simone be desperate enough for normalcy, for the illusion that her life wasn't imploding, to show up to a party where her affair partner's wife was hostess? Marnie responded, "That's really kind. I'll tell her. She might appreciate getting out of the house." Thursday, I visited Hugh. He opened the door holding Radar, the cat looking significantly more comfortable than its owner. "Come in," Hugh said, stepping aside. His house was exactly what you'd expect from a retired Navy officer. Clean, organized, furniture at right angles, everything in its designated place. "I need 3 more favors," I said, settling onto his pristine couch. "Name them." "First, I need you to burn all the surveillance footage to 3 separate drives. 1 for me, 1 backup, 1 insurance copy." "Already done. Made 5 copies, actually. Labeled and dated." He pulled 3 flash drives from his pocket and handed them over. "What else?" "Second, I need you to help me set up the projection equipment Saturday. I want it angled so everyone at the barbecue can see the fence screen clearly, but hidden enough that Pierce doesn't notice until it's too late." Hugh's expression didn't change, but something that might have been approval flickered in his eyes. "I can do that. And the third favor? I need you to make sure Calvin Keller gets an invitation to the barbecue. Not from me. From you, neighbor to neighbor. Tell him you think he should see something. Make it mysterious. Make it matter. You want both of them there. Not a question." Hugh was too smart for questions. "I want everyone there. The whole neighborhood, Pierce, Simone if she's desperate enough to show up, Calvin definitely. This isn't just about revenge. It's about making sure the truth is public record. No, he said, she said, no competing narratives. Just facts in high-definition video." Hugh nodded once. "You're more like military than you know. Strategic, thorough, always thinking 3 moves ahead. I'm a data analyst married to a liar. I learned to verify everything. Saturday at noon, I'll come over early to help set up. Friday was prep day. I marinated chicken, made coleslaw, bought enough hamburger meat to feed a small army." Pierce hovered uselessly, offering to help in that way people do when they don't actually want to help but feel obligated to offer. "I've got it," I said, assembling burger patties with therapeutic aggression. "You focus on job applications." "I sent out 12 resumes today," he said, seeking validation. "Got 1 callback already. Sales position at a Honda dealership in Pflugerville." "That's great, honey." The endearment tasted like poison. "Things are looking up." He hugged me from behind, chin on my shoulder. "I don't know what I'd do without you, Cleo. You've been so supportive through this nightmare. I'm really lucky." Lucky. That's one word for it. Saturday morning dawned clear and hot. Perfect Texas Labor Day weather. Pierce set up tables in the backyard while I arranged food in the kitchen. At 11:30, Hugh arrived with equipment bags. "Projection system," he said quietly, passing Pierce in the hallway. "Cleo asked me to set up a slideshow of neighborhood photos. Thought it'd be nice." Pierce barely looked up from wrestling with a folding table. "Cool, thanks, Hugh." By noon, guests started arriving. The Richardsons with their famous deviled eggs. Tessa and her husband Forrest brought craft beer. The Hendersons, the Caldwells, the Brennans from the next street over. 47 families on the invitation list. 32 showed up. Excellent attendance for a holiday weekend. At 12:40, Calvin Keller walked through our gate looking like a man attending his own funeral. Hugh had done his job. At 1:15, against all probability, Simone appeared at the fence gate, her sister Marnie beside her for moral support. Everyone was here. It was time for the main presentation. At 1:30, I tapped a fork against my glass. The universal signal for shut up and pay attention at gatherings where alcohol and social obligation intersect. Thanks everyone for coming to our annual Labor Day barbecue, I said, voice steady, smile practiced. Pierce stood beside me looking proud, like he'd actually contributed something beyond moral bankruptcy to this event. Before we eat, I wanted to share a special presentation. Hugh put together something really interesting about our neighborhood. Hugh pressed a button on the remote. The projector hummed to life, casting light onto the white fence we'd repurposed as a screen. Pierce looked confused but not alarmed. Yet. So, this is a little different than previous years, I continued, my voice carrying across the yard. See, I've learned something important recently about trust, community, and the value of good neighbors who pay attention. The first image appeared. Timestamp March 15th, 2:14 in the afternoon. Pierce's BMW in our driveway. Simone getting out of the passenger seat. Pierce's face drained of color so fast I thought he might pass out. Simone made a small choking sound near the back gate. Calvin went completely still, the kind of stillness that precedes violence or breakdown or both. This is surveillance footage from Hugh's security system, I said, voice calm as if I were presenting quarterly earnings instead of demolishing lives. He installed cameras after the car break-ins early this spring. Turns out they captured some fascinating data about patterns in our neighborhood. Click. Next image, Pierce and Simone entering our house. Timestamp showing they were inside for 2 hours and 47 minutes. That's my house, I said helpfully, in case anyone missed the point. On a Thursday afternoon when I was at work, Pierce told me he was doing inventory at the dealership. Inventory of what, exactly, remained unclear until now. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. The kind of laughter that happens when people don't know if they're supposed to be entertained or horrified, and land somewhere in the middle. Click. Motel 6 footage. Both cars clearly visible, license plates readable. Click. Downtown Airbnb. Multiple timestamps over 3 months. Click. Target parking lot on a Sunday morning. Coffee cups visible through the windshield. Pierce found his voice finally. Cleo, what are you doing? I'm doing what you've been doing for 6 months, honey. Sharing my life with the community. Isn't that what marriage is about? Sharing? I clicked to the next image. The Starbucks meeting. The ultrasound photo on the table between them. Pierce's hand over Simone's. This one's my favorite, I said. That's an ultrasound photo. Simone's pregnant, aren't you, Simone? Congratulations, by the way. I hear pregnancy glow is real. Though, in your case, it might just be the glow of complete moral bankruptcy. Simone's sister Marnie grabbed her arm, trying to pull her toward the gate. But Calvin blocked their path, his face a mask of betrayed fury that would have been satisfying if it weren't so genuinely painful to witness. You knew about this? Calvin said to me, his voice cracking. How long have you known? 2 weeks, I said honestly. I found out 2 weeks ago and spent that time doing what I do best, gathering data, verifying facts, building an airtight case. Because here's the thing about being married to a liar. You learn to trust nothing and verify everything. Pierce grabbed my arm. Not hard, not violently, but desperate. Cleo, please, we can talk about this privately. You don't have to do this here. I pulled away, meeting his eyes with zero sympathy. Why not here? You had your affair here. In our house, in our neighborhood, with someone from our community. You made it public property. I'm just providing the documentation. You're insane, he hissed, loud enough that several people heard. No, I'm thorough. There's a difference. Insane would have been setting your car on fire. Thorough is making sure every person here knows exactly what kind of man you are before you try to play victim. I clicked to the next slide. Spreadsheets. Beautiful, color-coded spreadsheets showing every fraudulent charge, every misused dollar, every lie cross-referenced with dates and locations. These are Pierce's financial records from the past 6 months, I announced. Approximately $11,000 of joint marital funds spent on hotels, restaurants, gifts, and general affair maintenance. That's our money. Money I earned working 50-hour weeks while he was busy building his secret life. Tessa whistled low. 11,000? That's a decent used car right there. Funny you mention cars, I said. Pierce also used his company credit card for personal expenses related to the affair. His boss, Gerald Thompson, discovered financial irregularities earlier this week. Pierce was terminated Tuesday for fraud, misuse of corporate resources, and falsifying commission reports. The crowd murmured. Being a cheater was one thing. Suburban neighborhoods could forgive a lot in the name of juicy gossip. But being a cheater and a thief? That was social suicide. Pierce looked around wildly, realizing his entire life was being dismantled in real time by the wife he'd underestimated for 8 years. You did this. You got me fired. No, you got yourself fired by stealing from your employer. I just provided the evidence. There's a difference between revenge and consequences. You're experiencing consequences. Simone finally found her voice, shrill with panic. This is cruel. You're humiliating us in front of everyone. I turned to her, and every ounce of fury I'd been suppressing for 2 weeks crystallized into my words. You're right. This is cruel. You know what else is cruel? Sleeping with your book club friend's husband, sitting next to me every other week discussing novels while pregnant with his baby, pretending to care about my life while actively destroying it. So forgive me if I'm not particularly concerned about your feelings right now. Marnie tried again to pull Simone toward the gate. This time Calvin moved aside, but not before saying directly to Simone, I filed divorce papers Wednesday. My attorney will contact you about custody arrangements. Not for the baby. I want nothing to do with that baby. But for our actual life together that you destroyed. Calvin, please, Simone started. Don't. His voice was flat, dead. You made your choice. Live with it. He walked out through the gate. Simone and Marnie followed, Simone crying loudly enough that I'm sure the Hendersons 3 streets over heard it. Pierce turned back to me, and for the first time since I'd known him, he looked genuinely lost. What now? Now? I pulled 3 pieces of paper from my pocket and handed them over. Now you read these divorce papers I'm serving you in front of witnesses. Texas is a no-fault divorce state, but adultery does affect property division. Especially when the adultery involved theft of marital assets. My attorney is very good. You're going to need one too. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know, Pierce. Where does Simone live? Oh, wait. She's staying with her sister in Round Rock while Calvin divorces her. Guess you two can figure out your new living arrangements together. Maybe Motel 6 has weekly rates. You can't just kick me out. This is my house too. Was your house. My attorney filed an emergency order yesterday for exclusive occupancy due to financial malfeasance and dissipation of marital assets. You have 72 hours to collect your belongings. After that, anything left becomes property of the estate. Hugh appeared beside me holding a box. I took the liberty of packing some of your essentials, Pierce. Clothes, toiletries, your laptop, saved you a trip upstairs. The efficiency was beautiful. Hugh had thought of everything. Pierce took the box mechanically, looked around at 32 neighbors watching his life implode, and seemed to shrink physically under the weight of public humiliation. I loved you, he said finally, like that absolved anything. You loved the version of me that didn't ask questions, the version that trusted you completely and made your life comfortable while you did whatever you wanted. That's not love, Pierce. That's convenience. He left. Walked out of our backyard, got in his BMW, probably his only remaining asset, and drove away. I watched him go with zero regret and a satisfaction so profound it felt like the best meal I'd ever eaten. The crowd was silent for approximately 8 seconds. Then Tessa started clapping. Slowly at first, then building. Others joined in. Not everyone, some people were too shocked, but enough that it felt like vindication. Okay, I said, clapping my hands together. Who wants burgers? I made extra. The barbecue continued. People ate, drank, discussed what they'd just witnessed with the enthusiasm of people who'd stumbled into the best reality TV episode of their lives. Several women asked for my attorney's number. Hugh stayed until the end, helping clean up, saying nothing but communicating everything through the satisfied look of a man whose surveillance hobby had finally paid dividends. That night, alone in my house for the first time in 8 years, I opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. Turned out public humiliation of your cheating husband qualified. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. This is Gerald Thompson. I owe you an apology. I should have caught Pierce's fraud months ago. Your documentation was impeccable. If you ever need a reference for anything, I'm happy to provide one. What you did today took guts. Another text, this time from Paige Morrison, Calvin's sister. I judged you wrong. That was the most satisfying thing I've ever witnessed. Calvin's doing better. Thank you. I didn't respond to either. Just sat on my couch, in my house, drinking my wine, feeling lighter than I had in months. Turned out revenge wasn't a dish best served cold. It was best served at a barbecue in front of witnesses, with receipts. 9 months later, my life looks nothing like it did the day Hugh handed me that flash drive. Better nothing. Significantly better nothing. The divorce finalized in February. Texas moves fast when adultery and financial fraud are documented in high-definition video. I kept the house, the savings account Pierce thought he'd been cleverly draining, and my dignity. Pierce got his BMW, mounting child support obligations, and a reputation that follows him around Austin like a bad smell. He's selling insurance now. The kind you buy in strip mall offices between a nail salon and a vape shop. Turns out, enterprise automotive sales professional doesn't translate well to other industries when your last employer fires you for theft. That Honda dealership job in Pflugerville rejected him once they called Gerald for a reference. His LinkedIn profile describes him as passionate about helping families protect their future, which would be hilarious if it weren't so pathetically ironic considering he destroyed his own family's future for mediocre motel affairs. Simone had the baby in April, a girl she named something I'll never remember because I genuinely don't care. She moved back in with her mother in Georgetown after Marnie got tired of supporting her sister's terrible life choices. Calvin remarried last month to a woman he met at his gym, posted the wedding photos on Facebook with captions about second chances and real love. Good for him. Some people deserve happy endings even after starring in someone else's nightmare. Pierce sees his daughter every other weekend, the court-mandated minimum. He pays $1,200 a month in child support, which, considering his new salary, means he's living in a rented room in someone's house in Pflugerville and driving his BMW until the wheels fall off because he can't afford the payments on anything else. The neighborhood still talks about the barbecue. I'm legend status now, the woman who turned a Labor Day cookout into the most spectacular public takedown Meadowbrook Estates has ever witnessed. Property values probably dropped from the drama, but entertainment values skyrocketed. The HOA can't find me for that. Tessa's book club nominated my revenge plot for most satisfying real-life story arc over anything we'd read that year. We started calling it the barbecue incident, like it was a historical event worthy of capitalization. Several women in the neighborhood have asked me to teach them how to check their husband's financial records. I've become an accidental consultant in matrimonial forensics. Hugh and I are genuine friends now. Turns out surveillance equipment expertise and data analysis skills make for excellent collaboration. We watch true crime documentaries together every Thursday, critique the investigation techniques, discuss how we would have solved cases faster. His cat Radar has decided I'm acceptable, which Hugh says is the highest compliment possible. I got promoted at work in November. Senior data analyst with a $20,000 raise and my own team. My boss said my attention to detail and pattern recognition skills were exceptional, even for this industry. If she only knew where I'd been practicing those skills, she might have given me a bigger raise. The house feels different now, lighter somehow, despite being the same square footage with the same furniture. I repainted the bedroom. Desert sunset, the exact shade that started the HOA complaint. Nobody's finding me now. Turns out when you're the neighborhood legend, people let certain things slide. I dated briefly in March. A software developer named Garrett I met through work. Nice guy, good conversationalist, appropriately employed and emotionally available. It lasted 6 weeks before I realized I wasn't ready. Maybe I'll never be ready. Maybe 8 years with Pierce burned through my capacity for trust the way acid eats through metal, leaving everything corroded. Or maybe I'm just enjoying being alone too much to compromise. There's something deeply satisfying about coming home to a space that's entirely yours, where nobody's lying about inventory or hiding entire relationships in hotel rooms off Highway 290. I eat what I want, watch what I want, paint the walls whatever color I want. Freedom tastes better than companionship right now. My mother calls every Sunday asking when I'll get back out there. I tell her I am out there, just not in the dating market. I'm out there living my life without a man-child who thinks affair maintenance is a reasonable budget category. She doesn't understand. But she's 67 and still married to my father, who's never lied about anything more serious than his golf handicap. Different generation, different problems. Sometimes I wonder if Pierce regrets it. Not the affair. Men like Pierce don't regret the thing. They regret getting caught. But maybe he regrets underestimating me. Regrets assuming the quiet wife who made his lunches and didn't ask too many questions would stay quiet when confronted with betrayal. That's the miscalculation that really cost him everything. I learned something important through this catastrophe. Being underestimated is the greatest tactical advantage you can have. Let people think you're not paying attention. Let them assume you're too trusting, too naive, too invested in keeping peace to make waves. Then when the moment comes, you have the element of surprise, and they have nothing but excuses that sound pathetic in front of witnesses. The other thing I learned? Good neighbors with security cameras are worth their weight in gold. Hugh's surveillance hobby saved my life in ways that have nothing to do with footage, and everything to do with someone actually giving enough of a damn to tell the truth. These days, when I drive past Motel 6, I don't feel rage or hurt. I feel nothing, which is its own kind of victory. Pierce is someone I used to know. Simone is someone I successfully forgot. And the whole nightmare is just a really good story I tell at parties when people ask why I'm single. I'm not single because my marriage failed. I'm single because I successfully escaped a marriage that was failing me. There's a difference. And that difference is living my best life in a house with a desert sunset door, a legendary neighborhood reputation, and absolutely zero tolerance for inventory excuses. Some happy endings don't include romance. Some just include freedom, a good salary, and the satisfaction of knowing the people who wronged you are struggling with consequences while you're thriving with choices. I'll take that ending every single time.